All right,
Pretty
guys.
awesome, actually.
Thank you,
That is
Paul
awesome.
and Colleen, for sharing with us what is working for you in winning in multiples.
So how do we want to start here? How do you want us to proceed? You guys want to just ask us questions, or I could tell a couple stories?
I wanted to start with. I
Yeah.
wanted Colleen to say she has listings that are getting multiple offers. What's winning? From the listing side, what's the basis of selecting what wins one offer over another?
Okay.
And Paul, you've had some success. I'd like you to share some of those, and I think naturally that's going to generate some questions for these guys. We'll ask you more specifics. Okay. Thank you.
When we're listing properties, we go in and we try to price them accurately for the market and make sure that we don't overprice them. The overpriced listings are not getting any attention, even though there's low inventory. So we're trying to be really careful that we can actually and literally support the price that we price the house at. So I feel like pricing is really super important. And then if we price it right, we're using pricing bands. What I mean by that is if my comps come up and say, this house is probably worth $205. There was a time when we would say, ooh, let's price it at $204.9. And now I look at the other homes that are listed, and I encourage my seller to list it at $205. And the reason is because a lot more people are going to think of how you search on the computer, how you search online. People are going to search from 150 to 200, and then a whole lot of people are going to search from 200 to 250. So if I can get them at that 200 range, then twice as many people are going to be looking at that listing. And then we have a better chance of getting into multiple offers. The multiple offers offer my sellers a couple of advantages. One is price, but not always. Depends on the listing. Sometimes the best advantage of a multiple offer is that the buyer knows that they can't be over picky with the inspection. So if we sell a house and it's got bad gutters or a bunch of windows with broken seals, if we can get it into multiple offers, the buyer might not ask for all of that to be fixed.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I love that because it's so true. You look in those price bands, like you said.
Right.
Do you want to be the best looking house in this price band or the worst looking house in this price band?
Right.
Like, it's obvious to the buyers that are out there when we're out looking at.
Because once we get people in and looking,
Yeah.
then they become emotionally involved, and that emotion helps the seller because people are willing to pay more.
Yeah, they want to feel like when they feel like they're getting a deal, like you said, they're not going to ask for a bunch of, if they feel like they're paying top dollar, well, everything's got to be just right.
Exactly.
And inspection and stuff. You see that too. Coaching people up front.
It makes a huge difference.
Setting those expectations.
Once we get a bunch of offers, there are a couple of things that writing an offer you can do to make it easier on the listing agent, make it easier for them to pick you. The first thing is send them a professional and complete offer. And what I mean by that is have your pre-approval or your proof of funds, have all of the documents filled out, like have the little form that tells where the earnest money is coming from. And if you do have a check for earnest money, please put a little piece of paper over the routing number and the checking account at the bottom of the check. Like I use a sticky, like a Post-it note, and just put it on there if I'm making a copy. But show your professionalism at every step. Nobody wants somebody to be compromised, and so none of us really want that account number. So fill that out. If you're using trust funds, just write trust funds. It's awesome. Trust funds is actually my favorite. And then have the whole purchase agreement. Use a separate form for personal property. Make sure that you have the details. If it's older than 1978, have a lead-based paint addendum, and make sure that you included the disclosures. Just make it easy for them to love you, and because if the realtor is involved and some of the offers are really close, they're going to pick the most professional looking offer because they know that their job will be easier going through the whole process.
Love that. I love that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly. It was funny, I was in a bidding war a few weeks ago, and we actually didn't win, but the listing agent called me. It was like really late, and I was like, why? He kept calling me. He just was like so excited. He was like, I really wanted to pick your offer because it was so exactly how I would have done it. It was so perfect and pristine and like personal, and the way you called me, and everything was detailed, and I didn't like, a week later, like we'd already found another place, and he called me and said, "Wow, this other one fell through."
Please come back.
And we couldn't, but he was like just giddy about
It
how,
matters.
and it matters so much,
Yeah.
and there's so many people that aren't like being on the listing side. How many offers 90% of them I get, like there's not even a summary in the
Right.
email. Like, come on, I just want to take it like
Right.
how hard is it?
If you're looking at 7 or 8 offers,
Yeah.
it's so stressful. And if you can make that listing agent's life easier, that's so cool. And like you said, write in the email a quick summary. This is what the price is. It's contingent on inspection, not contingent on the sale of a home. If it is contingent on the sale of a home, give them details so that they know what they're picking from. And then,
I just wrote this down. This is something that I put in the last couple offers. Just, you gotta sell yourself too. You're not just selling the offer, you're selling yourself to the listing agent.
absolutely.
Because there's a lot of people that aren't so detailed out there. Like, I'll start sometimes, like if it's looking good, like I'll start by calling the phone, talk to that listing agent,
Yeah.
call them, compliment them on the listing, the stage, whatever you can. If you think that offer might be coming, and like start to create a rapport. If it's an EXP realtor, like pretend like you're thinking of, ask some questions. Because they're trying to recruit you, because they get profit share. But just like try to appeal to them before you're trying to sell the offer, and make yourself seem professional and talk about how you handle things and create that rapport, and so they know you a little bit by the time the weekend's up and they have 50 offers or whatever. You're the person that stands out. But I started putting this in the offers, as I put it in. I'm an easy agent to work with and communicate with you every step of the way. I take deadlines seriously and will definitely be working toward a win all around. And
That's huge.
just like say that, like why not? It doesn't hurt. It
That-
doesn't hurt to say that, and have the lender, have a good lender that you work with all the time, and have them call too.
Yep.
And say good things about your client.
Paul, I've got a request from a remote watcher asking you to talk a little louder.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Should I say that again? I'll talk louder from here on out. Yeah.
How do you feel about escalation clauses?
I love them.
Yeah.
I use them
Mhm.
all the time, and I've
Yeah.
had people tell me that they hate them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Why? Like, why would you hate that? I use escalation clauses consistently in my multiple like I'm the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
And as a buyer's agent, how do you typically phrase your escalation clause? Do you have like some typical wording that you use?
I have verbiage I use. I couldn't spell it off though. I could
Okay.
share it with you though.
I can paste and click it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to just do a Google search too and find
Yeah.
that language. It's
Yeah.
just keep it as simple as possible. I would say. Don't get
Do
crazy
you go
with it.
1,000 over?
Yeah.
1,000 each
Yeah.
round?
I had a seller one time with the escalation clause, and it was in such small increments that they didn't like that. I was like, oh, I'll take the other one that's
Okay.
Right.
larger.
Don't be
increments.
ticky tacky.
Yeah, like make it at least $1,000, I think, depending on the price point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And write a letter. Have your buyer write a personal letter, and honestly, they can use the same letter for multiple properties,
Mhm.
because the letter tells us who they are. But I just sold a house in Midway in St. Paul, and the lady who lived there had raised her children there. She loved the home. It's a historical home, and she was so worried about who her neighbors were going to have as a new neighbor that she like read. It was painful for me because she read each letter like, well, what do you think they mean by this? But those letters meant so much that she accepted $1,000 less
Mhm.
to go with the letter that she liked.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I've had that happen at least 3 times.
yeah,
Accepting an offer that was less because of the letter and because coupled with the presentation.
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have your buyers write in that letter? More about them or more about what they love about the home?
Both.
Both.
50-50.
But keep it short.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate to stalk the owners on Facebook. Look at the things. I'm serious though. Like
Yeah.
look if there's
Look
some
at the things
pictures
that
in the
they like.
house and like if you can see it was a family that's moving up and it's a family moving in without kids yet, like they're gonna talk about how they're gonna have kids and you know, you can do a little detective work. You don't have to go. I've also had people like a recent one where she was like really political. She worked for a political campaign and looked this lady up on Facebook, the seller, and found that she was also in that
They
same
were in
movement.
agreement? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
We didn't put it in there because it's a little bit creeping, but
But it makes them all happy. They can.
But
talk
like
about
maybe
it
you would. I don't know. Maybe you put that in
Maybe
there.
you
like-
use innuendos instead of being real blatant about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd still be careful just because with politics and religion, you don't really know.
Yeah.
I grew up in a family where my mom was a Republican and my dad was a Democrat. So that would have been, you might have seen something in the house and it might not fit.
Yeah.
Who the decision maker is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's what I say. Like maybe
it's probably
don't,
much
maybe
less
don't do
common
that,
in
but-
this generation.
But she asked me, should I put something in there about that? No, probably not. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
That you know.
But I
it's
usually
like-
have them write, like if you have to do a form letter for, like, to tell them what to write, I would say, tell me a little bit about you, why you want to buy this house, and why this house as opposed to any other house on the block.
Right.
And then short and sweet.
Yeah, I think another thing is just talking to your buyers beforehand about strategy. I think you said it, like there's the overpriced ones. Okay, look for the overpriced ones. You might actually be able to put a low offer in this market. They might be weird. You know, maybe I found one for a guy recently that there was a train that went right by the house. Great house. He loved it. Didn't like the train. Thought it was cool, but that would scare some families off.
Right.
So find a weird one. You know, that's a strategy. Overpriced, underpriced. Interesting. Last spring we had one. This is a good story. I like to tell it. My buyers were looking in South Minneapolis, kind of Nokomis area. Probably one of the hottest markets, and then they were kind of looking. It wasn't Linden Hills, but around like Fulton, that kind of area. And their max budget was like maybe $350, maybe $375 if they pushed it. After losing in 3 or 4 bidding wars, to where they didn't even have a chance because it was at the max of their budget. We found one in Richfield that was underpriced. It was listed at, and I think it was literally the agent just didn't know. I don't think he did it on purpose, because sometimes that's a strategy too.
Right.
Priced at $240, we offered $275. There were 36 offers on that house, and I think that's all-time record from what I've seen. And
That sounds painful.
So 35,000 over asking price, but it was probably mispriced by 20,000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that crazy. And we weren't the highest offer. It came down to the letter, the presentation, and the appraisal thing came up, like, oh, is it gonna appraise? Hell yeah, it's gonna appraise. It looked good. I looked around, like, it was absolutely fine. So, another interesting strategy, look under your budget.
Yes, so that you
And
have
be-
that flexibility to go up.
Look for something underpriced and be smart enough to, like, okay, everybody's thinking 20,000 over. That's what everybody else is thinking. Okay, screw it, we'll drop a lava grenade and
Yeah.
35,000 over. You wouldn't think that makes sense, but the price isn't the price. Like, the price isn't some magical thing. That's just what the agent decided to price it at. So,
How did you have that conversation with your buyer and set the expectation? Because your buyer's going to want a deal, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, underpriced,
Yeah.
you know. How do you
Yeah.
how do you set that expectation with your buyer to say we should go 35,000 over,
yeah. Well, keep in mind their budget was 350.
right?
And so we still got a house at 275, and then they did a $40,000 kitchen remodel.
Okay.
So it just made sense. I think, and you're absolutely right. Like, the reason I was able to set that expectation was because they had blown it 3 times in a row.
Sure,
'Cause
yeah,
they,
okay.
honestly, they didn't listen to my advice on the first few offers.
What did you tell them?
So they had learned through experience and pain, like massive pain, that, and sometimes you have to go through that process
You
with a
do.
person.
It's kind of rotten. It's a
Yeah.
horrible learning curve.
She told me, the husband understood. The wife, she was like, I get a deal on everything. She told me. Like, I don't buy anything without getting a deal. Like, and it's like, no, well, you don't understand. We're not talking about 1980s and buying a used car and haggling with the used car salesman. This is a seller's market. It's not working that way.
One of the
Yeah.
things that's helped me too is to be able to tell people, over the last 12 months, the Twin City area has appreciated 7%. This year, we're expecting another 5% appreciation. The year after that, 3% appreciation is what we're expecting. Now, is that going down a little? Yes, that's healthy, because you don't want a market where things go straight up, because then they come straight down.
Yeah.
But what we want to see in real estate is a slow, steady increase in pricing, and that's what we're seeing. So this is a very healthy market.
Mhm.
But the prices, if you're comparing to what you could have bought in that neighborhood last year, you're wrong. If you're comparing to what you will pay next year, you're wrong. You need to be right in here. And I think helping people understand that makes a difference too. Because it's a different pricing model than if you're going to Aldi's.
And then could you use like even higher percentages in certain neighborhoods? I mean, kind of legitimately say,
Right, do
this
your-
is the average in Minneapolis. I'm assuming it's much higher here, right? Like in certain areas.
Right, you want to do your math and make sure, because that also means some neighborhoods are going to be lower.
Yeah.
So, what is our class tomorrow on numbers? That's
Yeah.
probably where you should,
Ninjas?
yeah, be a number ninja.
Yeah. That personal letter too, holy cow.
Yeah.
I've seen many times tears at the closing table over those letters. And I've seen people get, like, I had that one recently, it was an estate, and it was 6 siblings. They're the kids, but they're all in their 70s and 80s, because
Yeah.
the mom that died was 100. And they were so incredibly touched by that letter, they could not stop talking about it. And I've seen tears multiple times from the seller at the closing table. And so it's
That's one of the
pretty
things I
meaningful.
like about real estate is, yes, it's a great investment. Yes, it's probably one of the biggest investments that your buyer's going to make. But this is still somebody's home. And I think if you treat it like a home and you allow them to see that part of it too, that it makes it a much better experience for everybody, for the buyers and for the sellers. It matters.
Another strategy I found from the buyer's standpoint recently that works, trying to speak up for that.
It's Megan. Hi, Megan.
Is that Megan? Megan, what are you doing?
She's sick. She has
Oh, she?
allergies.
It's not Corona. Okay.
It's not Corona, right?
She can't talk back to us.
She can type.
But I've noticed, just, I don't know if you guys get like your clients send you stuff on Zillow. And you're like, oh, about 75% of the time it already sold or it's under contract. I've started, when I see those, instead of just being like, sorry, it sold already, now call the listing agent. Okay? I don't know if you realize this, but a lot more deals are falling through during inspection lately.
Yeah.
Bunch of times I've actually caught them just at the right time. Yep, it's coming back on the market. And so, okay, immediately you're creating a rapport with that agent. You're going to get them in there.
Yeah.
First in. Yeah. You know what happens when a listing falls through with the listing agent before they even call the seller? They're going to call everybody that expressed interest first because they want to have a backup buyer lined up. So like if you could be that person and be the first one, like you've already seen it, because they'll let you in to see a property that's under inspection a lot of times. It's just another tactic.
Yeah,
Like you might find, I never put, like when I have people on searches, I never put them on, I don't show them the ones that are under contract, but it's happened a few times. And like, so if you really want to get aggressive, some of them are marked as T's, temporarily unavailable. Like, why is that? Okay, well, let's look in this area and let's call the agent and find out, oh yeah, it's coming on next week. You want to come take a look? Sure. You're not, well, you can't.
Be careful, don't do
you
that.
You can't do
Don't
that
do
anymore.
that.
You can't do that anymore. But like, if you could be the first one in,
Right. You
which
start at 8 a.m.?
yeah,
We'll be
yeah,
there.
yeah. Which gets me kind of to another thing is like, just speed. I've gotten properties under contract before anybody else has seen them.
Yeah.
I had one that was a rental and it required 48 hours notice, and it came on the market. Okay, 48 hours. Call the agent. Can we get it earlier? Okay, I'll check with the tenant. Okay, we were in within the first few hours of it being listed. Everybody else is being told 48 hours. We had it under contract before anybody saw it. And that was a great one because it would have gone into multiples. And he was trying to push me above asking price, the agent. And I think we went maybe a couple thousand, but it would have gone for 5,000 to 10,000 over asking price if anybody would have seen it. But we tied it up before anybody could see it. So that's another.
That's really good.
It's another one. Like, so the T's, the T's, the AIs, and what else? The coming soon is just being the first. You can't go see it when it's coming soon, but you can be in it.
But you can drive past it.
You can be in at 8 a.m.
Yep.
the first day and like be prepared. And another thing, inspection. Like people are waiving inspections. I'm not comfortable with that.
Don't do that.
But
if you decide to not ask for anything, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you have to, if you don't do an inspection, you should have them sign something saying that you recommended an inspection and they chose not to.
Yeah.
Because you're exposing yourself.
Yeah. No, and that's what I was gonna say. I haven't done it.
No.
But I've lost in multiples with
Yeah.
somebody else waived inspection. And we went like this. The particular house, it was like, oh no.
As the listing
Yeah.
agent, how do you feel about the reduced time of the inspection period, or, what are your thoughts? Is that really something that makes a difference?
Yeah,
Big difference.
it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 days.
You can reduce the days from 10 days to 5 days.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I would recommend that. You probably have inspectors that you've worked with already, and if you don't, we can give you some who are really good. But you can set up a second showing and have the inspector go through with your buyer, and you can, that can be the inspection. And they can say, well, as far as I saw, I don't see anything scary here.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
nothing glaring.
Yeah. That's no guarantee. And so if you did that, you might want to encourage them to get a home warranty, just
Yeah.
to cover themselves a little.
Yeah.
Or buy it for them, depending on the price point.
You can put in with your offer too that you actually have, I do this all the time, like inspector is already scheduled for tomorrow at
Yes.
2 o'clock. tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Quick inspection will have you an answer the next day. And you call the agent and you tell them, hey, I coached my clients, like I can't control them, but I did coach them. You know, we're looking for safety, security, structural. Those are the things that I always tell people.
Right.
Defective things.
It's not a shopping list.
Right.
Yeah.
Your inspection should be a to-do list for the next 5 years. It's not a get this done before closing list.
Like that. Yeah.
So setting the expectation with your buyers.
Yeah.
Yeah, set the expectation and then communicate that with the listing agent that you coach them. Like
Right.
they know that you can't control
Right.
what your buyer is going to do. They might still do that. They might still,
Humans.
They might still have a laundry list, and everybody knows you can't control that. But you can express that and have that inspector lined up for the next day. I had one that we got under contract, and we had the inspection the next morning. It was a Sunday. Had the inspection the next morning, and we backed out. You know, it wasn't even 24 hours.
Yeah.
It was
Which is
interesting.
nice because that
Yeah.
gives the listing agent the ability to go ahead and remarket that.
Yeah.
So the next time you work with that agent, you can say, you know, didn't work last time, but that's why we do it fast.
They respect you for that.
Yeah.
Yep, and not dragging it out till midnight,
10
the
days.
last day,
Yeah, try really
which
hard
is
not to
about
do that.
90% of the time, whether we like it or not, but it happens. So, inspection, yeah. But that's a big tactic, I see it. Waiving inspection, and I guess that's how they do it.
That, and if you're going, I had a townhouse in Bloomington that was really, it was an all-cash offer with no inspection.
Yeah,
Nice.
beautiful.
It was like, la.
Yeah. A townhome's a little easier to digest.
Right. But because it was
Yeah.
cash, we didn't have to worry about appraisal.
Yeah.
I have had buyers go through multiple offers and then have the appraisal not work out, and we've renegotiated a price.
Mhm.
In that case, you have to know what can your buyer do? Are they able to meet halfway? Like, what are your options? Because I think it came out 5,000 short, which for a lot of first-time home buyers, that's a lot of money. And so we absorbed 2,500 and the seller absorbed 2,500, and they were like, well, that'll help pay for pizza for the moving day. I'm like, that's a lot of pizza.
Yeah, just a good amount of
Right.
pizza. Seems like pizza prices have gone up for us.
Probably not that high.
Yeah, on the appraisal issue, if you, on one hand, if you have somebody that is a little more strapped, you know, maybe don't bring it up.
Right.
if you're going way above asking price.
Don't bring it up to the listing agent.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Do bring it up to your buyer.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. That's
And tell 'em.
that's what I'm saying, because they might miss it, and then it actually is. It's a contingency. Like if it doesn't appraise, that you don't have to write that into the contract. People think you do, but you don't.
You don't.
You don't. If it doesn't appraise, you are outside the terms that you offered on the financing, and therefore you can walk away, and so you can start negotiating.
Or you can renegotiate.
Yeah, yeah. So
Because
you
you
can
don't
start
know how
negotiating.
far apart you were from that other offer,
Yeah.
and they're already tired, and they might have already started packing their stuff up.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. It's going to be the same
Yeah.
problem with anybody, supposedly, you know.
if
so.
you have a buyer who has wherewithal, or they have money, sometimes what we've said too is, you know, if for any reason it doesn't appraise, the buyer is able to make up the difference.
That's what I was just going to say. Write it, like if they can do it, write
Right.
it in. Write it in there.
Because that's very strong too.
Yeah.
Because anytime you go above list price, that the appraisal is a concern.
Because I had one a couple weeks ago. We lost in the bidding war. I think we were really, really close. It was like 5 offers. The house was right around 500. It's like 480. And it was really, really close, but they were concerned about the appraisal. And the agent called me and said, what happens if it doesn't appraise? And I verbalized to him, oh yeah, I called them, and I called the buyers, and they said we'd make up the difference, no problem. And I verbalized it to him, and I think that was a mistake, because I think I should have put it in writing.
Yeah.
I don't know, there was a reason why he was asking, and probably should have put it in writing, but I didn't. It was a blessing in disguise. We got a better house.
See?
But yeah, so put it in writing or talk to your buyer about it and keep
Yeah.
your mouth shut with with the listing agent because it could be a point of renegotiation later.
As we're seeing more and more of these multiple offers that are going above list price, do you have a gauge of how many of these houses are not appraising at the negotiated price or at the,
Most of mine appraise,
okay?
and I think that's partly how I set it up. Before I became a real estate agent, I appraised homes for 3 years, so I always try to think like an appraiser, which doesn't really work, which is why I'm not still an appraiser. Your appraisers are typically report people. They're the opposite personality of a good real estate agent. They tend to be numbers people, report people. They like detail, and they're kind of like an engineer. They don't necessarily want a ton of conversation about the house. So what I do for my listings is I put comps down that support whatever the price is. If we got multiple offers, I print out the first page of each of the offers and show this house, got 8 offers, and I circle the price. And so I'm preparing the appraiser. I'm giving them numbers and reasons for this to work. Does that make sense? I also put a bottle of water out with a quick note. Call me if you have any questions. Here are the comps, and I will have emailed them the comps the day before because that's when they start their work. By the time they get to the house to measure it, they've probably already photographed all of their comparables, and they're already pretty set. Like their report might already be half written. And so I email the comps the day before. I have them printed out at the house, and then I print out the first page of each offer if we have multiple offers, with highlights or circles to make it like a 1-second overview for them, along with a bottle of water. And I tell my seller if they're home to say, "Hi, let me know if you need anything."
Yeah, I like that. What about the little detail stuff in the contract? Like the written statement, I think is a big thing.
Yeah. Is that line
You know what I'm
71
talking-
and 78?
Yeah. Yeah, just, do you guys know the one I'm talking about? Just, hey, we're like, you get your earnest money back. Or, hey, a week before, we're gonna get a letter from the lender and your money goes hard. Not too much to ask, but it's a
huge.
detail that on the listing side, I always make them go back and change it.
Yeah.
And on the buyer side, I've been burned by the lender enough times to where I always put it in on the buyer side too, because you don't want to get to that final 3 days before,
Yeah.
and like it's still literally Wells Fargo sitting on their desk still, like 3 days before closing. I had one a few years ago where it was right around Christmas. We negotiated an early move-in for my buyers, and so they had
So
moved.
before closing?
Yeah.
Nice.
They moved all their things in to the house. This is like a week before Christmas, and but it was a contingent, so they were selling their house, and the lender like totally dropped the ball on. It was actually on the sale of their house though, so but it had a domino effect. So they had their things moved in, and it was Christmas, and no lenders are working for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So closing got pushed back 3 weeks, and they had their things moved into the house. They could not access the house because it wasn't like it was like early move your stuff in, but not
Not
early
a
go,
rental.
not early go live there. And so, yeah, so at Christmas they were homeless. Yeah, it
That
sucked.
makes people happy.
So I always, ever since then, I always get that written statement, no matter what. And it's a small thing, but like, as the listing agent, if you have to go back and ask for anything, it's just not as clean.
Yeah.
If you don't have that. Also, just like little things like work orders, the buyer pays for them, right? Like,
Yeah.
buyer pays for them, don't check the seller box. It's, that might be in favor of your buyer, but that's something that I just look at as on the listing side. I'm like, come on.
If you get
Like-
re-inspected for an FHA loan,
Yeah.
the buyer can pay for it.
Yeah, right.
FHA loans are harder in a multiple offer situation, because FHA can ask for things, even if buyer's like, I'll take care of that later, FHA can say, no, this has to be done before closing.
Yeah, I've got one right now. It was a peeling paint deal, and they can't do it, so it had to escrow. They agreed to do it,
Yep.
but then they wouldn't escrow the money. And we fought over it for 2 weeks, and we won, but that's frustrating. And and they pointed to because we put $200 in for work orders. They pointed to that. And I'm not going to get into that. That's all.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's
sorry.
frustrating.
Yeah.
But what are some other little things in the contract that are just
Home warranty.
yeah, home warranty.
The
yeah.
buyer should buy their own home warranty if you're in multiples.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if they're a first-time home buyer, I highly recommend home warranties, because they probably put everything that they have in it. If the furnace goes out, they're gonna be
Yeah.
SOL.
Yeah.
And you don't want that call like, we don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you.
And on that note, that is something, if you do go through inspection and your buyer's just dying for a win, that's an easy thing to ask the seller for. If the
Yeah.
appliances are old,
Yeah.
or if the furnace is a little bit on the older side, don't you think? I mean,
Yes.
okay, $500, okay. Because even in that multiple situation, it's a little win.
Yeah.
They feel like they just got raked over the coals by offering $20,000 over asking price. You can ask the seller for a $500
Yes.
warranty, usually.
And for safety
If it's old stuff, like,
Yeah.
if the inspector goes through and they go, yeah, half this stuff is gonna give out in the next couple of years, it's on its last leg, you can ask for that,
Yeah.
for a little win, for a small win.
I always tell my sellers too, you're gonna get called on safety things. If you haven't put GFCI outlets in your kitchen or in the garage, you're gonna get called on it, and you're gonna have to do it. So I try to encourage them to do it before we go on the market, but if they don't, I tell them to look for it to come up. So buyers can ask for small things, but if you're gonna ask for something that's gonna be a lot of time, a lot of effort, then that can be a problem. So with my buyers and multiple offers, I usually ask for like a price reduction. I don't know, $500, $1,000, and we'll take care of all of this. And that seems to be better than asking a seller who's already tired to do more.
Yeah, totally. Mhm. Yeah. What else?
On the sell side, when you're marketing or getting ready to market a property that you are open for multiple offers on, what are some strategies for what you can do, just moving into it or setting it up?
Have it go live on, during the week, like in an ideal situation, we go on the market on Monday and we hold the broker open. We have an open house either Thursday night, Saturday, or Sunday, or 2 or 3 of those. And then we look at offers Sunday night. And I just tell people in the agent comments, seller will be available to look at offers Sunday night. So there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And then I hold to that.
Yeah, nothing sucks worse than it's Monday and you just got like you put on the market on Monday and you're off, it's a good offer and you're like, okay, we're gonna sit on this until Sunday. And
I know, sorry.
It's the worst. So yeah, like setting those, I love that you asked that and said
Yeah.
that, because setting that, you better say it up front, because otherwise,
People get hurt.
Like the seller is frustrated because they don't want to sit on it for,
No.
and the buyers are, they're frustrated too. So set that expectation. Yeah.
Do you think that the buyer would put in their best offer knowing that it's going to be weighed?
No.
That it's going to just sit there and not looked at?
No, I don't think they will.
Okay.
Usually, the offers that come in at the beginning of the week, I make sure that I call them back when we're in multiples, and I say, hey, we're now in multiple offer, so we're calling for highest and best Sunday at 5 o'clock. And the agent will go, shoot, I knew it.
Yeah.
Yep. So here's where we are, and I always tell them, I'm sorry. This is a hard market to be a buyer, because there's no reason to not be kind.
You don't go, ha-ha.
Nee, 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 nee.
What do you think about being first in? I always try to be first in.
I-
Even if it's not your best, like it's going to be a best and final
It helps.
later,
Yep.
but being the first in is
First in
important.
helps.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you do a coming soon or anything like that prior so that people are kind of pulling up on a certain day to come and look at it?
I love coming soon. The last listing I did came live on March 2nd, and so I was like, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So that one was weird, but I have another one that's going to go on the market probably next week, and she's not sure yet, so we can't do a coming soon yet. But yes, I love coming soon, because with the coming soon, people who are on our what do you call it, the auto email, you know what I'm talking about, where your buyers get auto email,
Yeah.
then they learn about it, they start driving past, and you get traffic from that. So it builds anticipation.
Yeah.
Just make sure you follow the rules. 'Cause
Yeah, I used to like the coming soons.
I know.
I use those a lot, but I don't know. I don't know how I feel about them now.
Kinda sad.
It's still building anticipation.
Yeah.
It's just, it was nice when you could get people through.
One of the things that our office is doing, and it's kind of in the infancy, so if you have a listing, you might want to make sure this happens. John Butler has 4 offices. That's a lot of agents. And so you want to make sure that each of those 4 offices are aware of your listing if you're coming soon.
There's a Butler group now on Facebook too.
Right. So be on the Butler Facebook group also.
I just joined that. That's cool that we were able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge advantage to you guys, so take it. And that might not be a bad place to put your buyer needs out too.
And someone already called me and said, hey, I've got something that you might want to see
Oh, right.
from that group, so it works.
Yeah.
Put a buyer need out there.
Yeah.
I have a note here, just like know your numbers. Like, I mean, you might not know that specific market, but figure it out. You
Yeah.
know, figure out at least the median prices and stuff and see where the home is relative to that, because it really isn't, again, like back to pricing, it's not magical. It could be overpriced, it could be underpriced, it could be priced just right. But you don't know your opinion until you take a look. So.
I would say that the average real estate agent, don't get me wrong, there are very many fantastic agents. There are more agents who are not fantastic, who don't do their homework, and who might be brand new. I don't know if they're brand new or if they're...
What are you saying?
There are some people who've been in the business 20 years who are brand new.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
People who just have never learned the numbers, who have never done their homework, who have never sat in a class like this. Those are the people who you have to be aware of when you're doing multiple offers also. And so you need to do everything to make yourself shine. And part of that is to know the numbers.
Yeah, and if you end up in one of those situations where you're actually not in a bidding war and you're going for an
Yeah.
overpriced property, know your numbers. Send the comp. I mean, it might be patronizing to send the comps over, but have them ready. Just
I
in
usually
case. Just in
ask
case it
people.
becomes an argument, because they might be looking. They might know it's overpriced and need some ammo to give to their seller too.
Because it might be their cousin or their brother-in-law
Right.
or something.
Right.
So often what I do is I say, can you help me? Here are the comps I pulled. I'm trying to figure out how you priced it.
Right.
I pulled it up like this,
That's a good way
because
to
I
put
always
it.
check in 3 different ways how to price something. So I looked at here, I looked here, I looked here. This is what I'm getting, and I need help justifying that price to my buyer because I don't see it.
Yeah.
And then they send you something that's completely like, the Taj Mahal compared to the shack. And you're like, the square footage, you're right, that it's in the same neighborhood, but the square footage makes, the price for this one should really be down here, anyway.
Do you use offer cover sheet summary included with your offers, just to make everything?
Either a cover sheet or an email that gives a summary is really helpful.
Yeah, I just put it in the email body, but I'm very detailed about it.
It should say any contingency,
Yeah.
if there's anything that could cost more or less. Home warranty.
Yeah. Point out everything that seems to be a little bit in their favor, because they might glaze past some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like the written statement's a good example. Like, so many people don't put that in there. That
It's-
might be important. Yeah.
It is really helpful too, because I one time received an offer where they had the price minus 3% and no cover sheet. So I called her up and I said, I just want to verify what the offer is. And she's like, well, it shouldn't be minus 3. I'm like, okay. Can you resend that to me? And we were really tight on time, and so I said, well, if your offer's selected, then we'll just have it rewritten.
Yeah. Did they win?
No. No, but for other reasons.
Yeah.
So.
What about earnest money?
I don't think it makes a big difference, do you?
I always tell people that, it could be it's the little details. Like it could be something. If the other guy made a really good offer and it's exactly the same as yours, or a little.
That's true.
And you offered on the higher end, and they offered earnest money on the lower end, it might set you apart, and you can get it back.
So you guys know that typical in our marketplace is at least 1%. So if you put down 2% or 3%, that is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I've never had a seller choose an offer just because of earnest money.
No, me neither.
But it can help tip.
Yeah, but it's just a little detail.
Right.
Yeah. It's
One
like
more
a little
detail.
thing. Yeah, if it's not gonna hurt them.
Right.
If it's not like they're borrowing money from mom to do it or something, I don't know. Not that they should have
Yeah.
to do that anyway, but that's another little thing that.
Have
Could
you
help.
had situations where, especially for first-time home buyers, they're using first-time or down payment assistance? Does that affect, have you had people lose in a bidding war because they have this extra financing thing for first-time home buyer financing?
I haven't, but what I would really like as a listing agent is for an explanation of it. Because there are so many different programs, and I need to be able to explain that to the seller.
Okay.
So if you make my life easy and you give me a little, this is what it is, and this is what it means, and this is how it's going to affect the sale, and here's the track record on it,
Okay.
then that's much better.
Okay.
Because then I look like I'm smart. Rather than, don't worry about that one, because I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, because you just don't know enough to even
Right.
explain it. Yeah. I know.
There are some programs like NACA that I would probably never take with multiple offer. So,
I don't know anything about that. But,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's-
And let your buyers know if they're FHA, they might not realize that that's putting them at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
It is, and so they might need to look in the less hot area, right?
Good.
What about finding places that need work? Like,
No, I haven't.
just hey, why don't you look for a place? I know some good remodel people.
Yeah, a few though.
You
Kim's
know?
got some listings
Yeah.
coming up, so you
Yeah.
could talk to her about those.
Yeah.
Yeah, investment properties, they're investment properties right now, the owner is selling. So if there's an investor or, one of
Yeah.
them would be great single family, or it's a townhome, but it'd be great to, someone to live in, it's really nice. The other two are need some love, so.
Where are they located?
One is, well, the one that's really nice and remodeled is in northeast Minneapolis, 289.9, and then there's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath in Maple Lake, if you're familiar with that. It's close to downtown, 155 around. And then I've got Hopkins, it's a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, probably around 175, 170, I think we're gonna do, or 165, I can't recall, but yeah, it's really cute. They did a nice job on that, 2-car garage.
That's a townhome?
That's a single family.
A 1-bedroom? It's the same.
It was a 3 when he bought it, then he made it into a 2, and then somehow it ended up to be a really big 1.
Yeah.
So.
It's a normal size 1-bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an
Just-
older home in Hopkins.
yeah.
It's supposed to shady up beach and stuff. So.
Okay.
And I have what we were getting for rent on them too, so that might be helpful for investor. Leads me to, do you list, if you have an investment property, do you list what it rents for, or does that kind of corner you
Yes,
out?
I would put that right in the agent notes.
Okay. Just the agent.
Yeah. I don't know where else you would put that.
There's
If you're listing it as an investment property,
Well, that's
there's a
true.
spot for it.
Yeah, there's a spot for it where you
Okay.
put the rent.
You might not want to put it in as an investment properity because you're gonna.
You want top dollar.
Exactly.
You might actually just want to sell it as a
Yeah.
single,
Yeah.
as a.
Right.
Otherwise you're
family.
limiting yourself.
You look at low value.
Investors are not known for overpaying.
Right.
No.
It's usually the emotional decision to overpay.
Right.
The contingency is, contingent on the sale of a home. One comment on that is, well, it's always interesting, like your timing on it, but if they own a home in one of the hot markets, they can, I always call it reverse contingency, I've been corrected on that, but you can say, hey, we're gonna sell our house and put it on the market, but we're not gonna sell it we're not gonna close until we find
Yes.
our home. So you're under contract already, at least. Does that make sense? I don't know if I said that all right. Might have been nonsensical, but like get the house sold first because we're
Right.
because we're in a seller's market.
With a flexible closing.
Yeah, like they could. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You kind of prefer to wait.
Yeah.
And put it on the market about the same time you find your house, but that's going to help you if you have to have a contingent offer. But talk to the lender too if you can do a non-contingent offer, and then see if they're comfortable. It's a good enough market; they should be able to carry if they can carry two mortgages for a month or so.
Well, and one of the lenders that I work with, if there's equity in the first home, they will actually help the seller of the first home to go out, find the home that they want, make an offer, close on it, and then market their home. And when that home sells, they completely recast the loan. So it costs less money than a bridge loan. The point is that there are a lot of creative ways to do it. So if you're having trouble with contingency on the sale of a home, you should talk to lenders and keep talking until you find somebody who has a solution that will work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can tell you about the guy who can recast loans. That's kind of awesome. That helped me a couple times.
And that's what it's called, recast?
Yes, because it's a complete recasting of the loan.
Yeah, I can't. That's such an issue. Move up buyers.
It is.
And you can't help but think this iBuy program is going to take legs eventually, and
Yeah.
we won't have the same situation of the intermediary in the future. I think.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Like,
basically what this small
yeah,
bank is doing.
yeah, like-
They're being the
Yeah.
intermediary.
Yeah. Because it's such a. I mean, how do you do it if you can't carry two mortgages, or you're not
Or if you
qualified
have
to?
4 small children.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, how do you do that?
it'd be a nightmare.
What about asking for closing costs? Avoid it all at all costs, or
No, just like
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, your listing agent's always gonna be shown that, like, I don't even really talk about the top line number, it's net. It's
Yes.
always net. So remember that, like, who cares? Like, they don't care. They don't
It
care.
just has to appraise.
Yeah.
And
So-
when you're going
so
above
that's-
list price
Mhm.
and then adding that, it makes it
Th-
more likely that it won't appraise.
That's where the issue comes in, is the appraisal issue.
Yeah.
And if you're asking for closing, if you have to ask for those closing costs, you can't afford to make up that difference.
Right.
So
Right.
that's tricky.
Yeah.
And if you lose out a few times, you might have to tell them to, hey, maybe you should think about looking in a different area.
Right? Go to a
Yeah.
different market where it's not quite. Don't buy in St. Louis Park if you need to wrap in your closing costs.
I was gonna say too, the reason we have the issue we do is there's more buyers than there are sellers. So there's gonna be buyers that aren't gonna get a place. Keep that in mind.
Right.
There's buyers, like the buyer you're working with right now they might just not get it. No, because there is an imbalance,
Yeah.
and it's a significant imbalance. So pick and choose, you know, where you're spending
How you
your
spend your time.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't do that very well because
You don't either?
I go and I fight hard no matter what. And if I had so many people, then it wouldn't be an issue. But I'll go out and fight and win. But
Yeah.
you just got to be better than the average guy, you know. So, but it is an issue. Like literally, there's going to be people that don't find a place and they're going to go back to renting or stay where they're at, move in with mom and dad.
Actually just helped a young couple find a house, and they bought a house for almost $500,000, but they were in a small house. They were not successful in buying, and so they sold that home. They did move to their parents' basement. They had 2 storage pods, and they lived there for 9 months, saved money the whole time, and then they went out and bought the house that they wanted, because then they didn't have to ask for closing costs.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're gonna have to, something will have to change if you keep not getting offers. Sometimes it's the offer, sometimes it's the buyer, so.
Yeah.
Was that their decision, or was that based on your recommendation?
I would never have recommended that.
Yeah, no. Like,
Well-
how would you even recommend that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should move in with your parents.
Yeah, so your mom.
Was it your kid?
No, my kids won't move home.
That'd be a weird conversation.
It was funny,
Yeah.
they're like, so can we meet you for coffee? I'm like, yeah.
It's kind of got to be their idea.
It was actually their mom's idea.
Yeah.
So, and it worked.
Yeah.
It was great. But sometimes the answers aren't easy, is the point. So,
Yeah, and be there enough for them where when things do come back around,
Yeah.
like you're the one that they come back to, and you're not the one that just ignored them.
yeah.
You know.
Have you guys had buyers not get their offer accepted? Is there anything that you want to talk through on that?
Pretty much covered all the issues I've had.
Okay.
For the most part, yeah.
Do you know that if your offer is not accepted, that the agent can't fully disclose to you why it wasn't accepted, because they still have that fiduciary duty to the seller, and you may have missed it by $1,000, or it might have been your letter, or it might have been something, but they can't really talk that through with you because that offer might still fall apart and they might call you back.
Yeah.
And so they have to hold their cards to their chest until after closing, and then you can look and see, oh, look at that, it sold for $20,000 more than we offered. I get it. But sometimes your buyers will go back and look and they'll be like, somebody, they just sold it for $5,000 less than we offered. What did you do wrong? And somebody did that to me once, and I was like, I don't know. And I looked it up. The other offer was cash. And so I called the agent, and she's like, it was cash, no inspection, you were $5,000 more. This is what they chose. All right, that makes sense. So sometimes you won't know the answer until after that house closes. And it could be so many different things.
escalation clauses, somebody asked.
Yes, escalation clauses are my favorite.
Yeah, and they're great. Some people don't like them though, so ask before you.
Yeah, before you send one over.
Yeah, I think so.
Ask the listing agent?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that they're particularly not liked in a different context when it's more of a buyer's market. Because you could actually do an escalation clause where it's a low offer. That's if it was a different market.
Right.
And that's where they got more of a bad rap, I think, where you're doing an escalation clause to something below offer asking price, because it can be done that in that capacity too. I've never been in that market, so I don't know, but
Yeah.
I've just read about this.
It's not as much fun.
Yeah, but that's where people are gonna like. That doesn't seem fair.
That doesn't feel good to the seller.
That doesn't feel good. That feels like they're trapped. But sometimes it feels unfair too when everybody else has put in a legit offer.
Right.
And you've got 20 offers you're sitting on. And you've got this escalation clause, and it doesn't seem fair to the other guys, I guess. I don't know. I'm not opposed to them, but some people don't like them for whatever reason.
Well, here's why people don't like them. My buyer just won because of the escalation clause. The condo was listed at $129,900. We put an offer in at $130,000, or we'll beat the next highest offer by $1,000, up to a maximum. And it's important that you always put a ceiling on.
Yeah.
Up to a maximum, right? A maximum of $145,000. Well, the other offer was $137,000. The next highest offer was $137,000. And so we paid $138,000. And the realtor was funny. She's like, the seller is kind of happy that they got $138,000, and they're a little miffed that they didn't get $145,000.
Yeah. Because then they know
Yes,
how high
that you would have gone up that
You
high.
would have gone up that, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's like just pull up your pants and like give your best offer. You know?
Put on your big boy shorts and let's go.
Your clause says that they have to provide proof of.
Yeah, proof is,
Yeah,
yes.
page 1 to 4, I read that.
I've never, yeah.
I always say that
I've
they have to
never-
give me proof of the net offer, because page 1 minus 3% is different than page
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
So proof of, and so proof of net offer and agent's name for verification purposes.
I did an escalation clause a couple weeks ago. We won, and it was a verbal, and she just called me back and said, "Okay, you got it at one," or it was at whatever it was. You know, she just gave me the number.
Yeah, I don't really make them do it, but I think if you put, it keeps people from being slippery.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So Colleen, if you ask for the other agent's name, do you call and verify? You do call them?
I never have.
You never have, okay.
I was gonna say like I haven't either.
I'm not
But it
sure
just-
what
it
you would
keeps-
say. I mean,
Keeps people honest.
No, I think it's just, sometimes you feel very uncomfortable, like you've been shafted.
There's some shifty people out there.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like you want to cover your
So
butt.
if I require that, then I can always pull that card and ask for it. Oh, I'm sorry, it says it in the contract, I have to ask for this. But if I don't feel that way, then I just don't ask,
okay.
so.
And will you email us your verbiage?
I think what we'll do to be smart is we'll ask Jim, how about if we both give Jim our escalation clause and ask him which one he wants us to give him?
Yeah.
That way it's from your broker.
Yeah. I use the same one all the time, but
I do too.
I just don't know it off the top of my
Yeah.
head. It's
But kind of like what you said, we will, go $1,000 over the next highest offer up to.
Yeah, up
this
to.
amount,
Up
with
to.
proof of the
Net,
net offer and the other agent's name.
right.
Okay.
I think I snagged mine off of Nolo. Have you ever been to that website?
No,
I think it's called Nolo.
Nolo.
Yeah, it's just like a free legal advice website where you can snag
It's
legal
also a really
verbiage.
great restaurant.
Oh, wow.
It's really awesome.
Is it?
What kind of food is it?
You have to ask me that. I think we did a brunch there, which was
Okay.
fantastic.
Crunchy food?
I love crunchy food.
Yeah.
We'll ask Jim, and that way he'll tell you what he wants you to say.
That'd be good. And that might be beneficial to go out to the whole office if we're all using these escalation clauses, you know, to be consistent and have, you know, your brokers backing it. That's pretty wise. So,
I know escalation clause have worked for me. I've written them, but I didn't have it worded that I need the agent name for verification or.
Yeah, I never did that.
So that's, I just asked for proof and.
Yeah.
And so that intrigues me. So I use it all the time.
Do you? And you've had success with it?
Yep.
Me too.
Do you ask first? Like, do you ask the agent if they're
Nope.
cool with it? Yeah.
Nope.
Do you?
It depends.
Yeah, like if they feel really strongly about it. then
Yeah.
That might be a deal breaker.
I did have somebody say, we're in multiples and I hate those escalation clauses. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, well, I use them a lot. She's like, whatever. Oh, guess we won't send you one.
well, you just set
Yeah.
that escalation off to the side, and every time,
Yep.
okay, this one still beats, you know.
Speaking of a broker, what did he coached me on just like what to say to your buyers when you're trying to get them to offer the most they can. He said something like, and I always use this line, and now I can't remember it here, but just like offer until it hurts, and then offer more than that. Because it's true, because there's a psychology around it, because like let's say it's like the house is listed at $299 and they go, okay, you know, let's go up to $320. Okay, don't you think somebody else is probably thinking that too? Like they're giving until it hurts.
You know what really
Like so
helps
you gotta
too?
go above like where that like okay so 325. Okay, how about 326? You know I'm serious
Right.
though, like because everybody's thinking the same way. Like everybody's using that same logic, and you got to point that out to them. Like you don't think somebody else is thinking that way?
The discount
Yeah.
grocery stores are popular for a reason. Everybody wants a good deal.
Uh-huh.
But you also want to win.
Yeah.
And there's a balance. It's helped me also to know how much $10,000 cost them, because
Yeah.
it's going to be different for each buyer. But typically, $10,000, like you can ask their lender, so how much does $10,000 cost them? Like if we raise the loan by 10 grand, is it $30? Is it $50 a month?
Yeah. Plug it into, you can easily plug it into an amortization
Exactly.
schedule. Like just put $10,000 in at 3.5%.
And then show that to them.
And be like, this is the interest and this is the principal too,
Right.
because like this is all you're paying in interest. And,
Right.
it could be $10 a month,
Right.
you know, like whatever.
So if this is all it's going to cost you to get the house, do you want the house?
How about the value of love too? You know, no, seriously though, like.
Have you
there-
used that
there-
one? 'Cause that's
it-
good.
Like there is a value on how much you love the house that
What is
cannot
the
be
value?
measured. No, it's true. Like because people are like, people get caught up on like the market and this and that. Like, okay, well you love this house. You can't measure the value on that, but there is a value there. Remember that.
It's kind of like when people, I get called by a lot of my center of influence to go and talk to people before they remodel their kitchen. That's one of the things I tell people I do. And they'll say, is it a good idea to do this to the kitchen? And the first question has to be, how long are you going to live there? And so that's a part of the question as you're talking to buyers too. How long do you plan to live there? 30 years? You can pay whatever you want.
Right.
The market's going to keep going up. You're going to be totally fine.
Yeah.
My father-in-law is selling his house this year in Chicago. He paid $14,000 for that house, and he had to work 2 jobs to get it. And he's so proud of that house, and we're selling it for about $450,000.
Wow.
So it really wouldn't have mattered if he paid $15,000, but at the time that seemed like a lot of money.
Mhm.
So if you kind of put this into, are you going to raise your family here? You're going to be here 30 years?
What's
Go.
$20,000?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overpay and get into the house where you can raise your children, somewhere where you can have the grandkids come back over.
Yep.
So what about the flip side of that? They're just gonna be there for 5 years.
Then you need to watch your numbers,
Yeah.
because there's a chance they're going to ask you to list it. And if they get something low because it's by the train track, when they're buying it, you have to remind them, when we list this in 5 years, we're going to list it a little bit lower because there's a train track right behind there, and that's why you got it. And I think if you predicate that, that just helps them
Kind of
to.
saying this reason for resale, you gotta think about that.
Absolutely.
Hey, that made me think of something too, like that train track property.
Yeah.
That was he wanted that. It was a twin home,
Okay.
and it was actually like it's a beautiful home. It's like Frank Lloyd Wright inspired.
Oh, cool.
It's on a lake, but the train track's there too. But the way I found that property was he had looked at the other side of the twin home
Okay.
a year before that, and he kept talking about it. So and the owner of the other side had bought it just a couple of years ago. I just was like, I've been looking for places with this guy for 2 years. So I just finally like called up the owner of the people on the other side and got it.
Really? He said,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm like legendary now. I was like, it was a good friend of mine because I did like I found him this place, you know, like and it did have the train track there, but I always use that as the train
That's
track
awesome.
thing as an example. But like, I don't know if you kind of know what they want. Like, why not? You could door knock or you could circle dial. Try it. Maybe you just find a listing out of the deal. I've found it before.
What a great way to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right? Like, so they didn't like it, but you just got a listing out of the deal. So use it as a lead, like, couple it in with your lead gen, because you might be able to just do a totally off-market deal like what we did
Yeah.
on that one. Because that was amazing that she actually, it got way more complicated than that. It was one of the worst negotiations I've ever had. because she called her agent.
Oh, yeah.
And he got involved, and I had to negotiate commission. Yeah, that sucked. So make sure you get that one-time listing or one-time showing agreement or whatever it is. It's another idea. Like,
That's a great idea. And a good note.
You won't ever do that again, right?
yeah, right. I would do it again, but I would be
Differently.
more. I'd be a little more careful
Without
about
the
that.
agreement of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that part, the way the contracts tie together, you have to have the listing agreement say that.
Right.
And if it's not listed, then there's no stated commission. So I was stuck theoretically negotiating a commission with my buyer. But I didn't do that. I said no. She's got to pay me. And then she negotiated the price up, and like it was just a nightmare. But again,
But you still got it.
yeah, I got it.
There you go.
Yeah, and he's happy. But train track. So many things.
Do you call the as a just a general when your client is interested in a property? Do you call the agent first and ask questions like what would make this a better?
Yes.
Especially about closing date and things that you can control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what is important what's important to the seller?
Yeah, I talked to him probably 5 times before. I maybe go overboard. Like, shut up, stop calling. But I do. I just really let them know, like they're gonna remember who I am when they're reviewing those offers. That I'm the one that was attentive.
Right.
And,
The detail
and
guy.
I always ask those questions. Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes they'll outright tell you what you need to do.
Mhm.
They will just tell you because they want you to win, because they like you.
Yeah.
No joke. And then other times they're really tight-lipped. Other times you can read between the lines. It's what they don't say when you ask very direct questions. So.
I've had buyers too who are like, there's no way they're getting that list price. And if we're multiple offers, I just say, do you happen to know if the offers are at or above list? And I've had agents tell me, well, they're almost at. Okay, thank you.
Below.
Way over. Okay, way over. I got it. Thanks. And then I can take that information back to the buyer.
Yeah, it's surprising what people will tell you.
I know.
If you just ask. And sometimes they won't. And sometimes they're nice, and sometimes they're mean. And sometimes they're professional, and sometimes they're amateurish. Takes all, but you got to try.
You do.
know.
And I try to personally call everybody who's put an offer in to tell them whether or not they've gotten the offer, because I know how much time it takes me to write an offer, and I appreciate the phone call. But I know a lot of agents are not doing that. They're just not doing anything. And then you'll see it, you're like, oh, look at that. It's under inspection. Nobody called me. I suppose that means we didn't get it. So.
Yeah, I always call.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say, do you call, if you're on the
Yes.
buyer side, you call the agent and say, hey, we haven't heard from you?
Yes.
Always be gracious and don't take it for granted. You know?
No.
So what if you got 20 offers? Like, don't ever take it for granted.
No, you always have time for people.
Yeah.
Because sometime you're going to be on the opposite side of the table from them. So.
Yeah, no, like that's the thing, is it comes around. Like
Yeah.
they might remember you from that other transaction where you just acted professionally, and that might be what sets you apart later.
There are a lot of realtors, but you'll end up seeing the same realtors over and over again because they're the ones who tend to do more business. So it is important to have those relationships and to treat people well. I wrote that down. What is the value of love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you say that, Paul?
It probably comes out differently every time. Just what's the value of love? Like if you really love the place, there's a value on that, but that might not be in the price. So it helps people get comfortable with. You want them to be comfortable. Like there's the price, but then there's the emotion that you can't really measure.
And I think when we're dealing with multiples, it's really about asking the buyer to pay more than they're comfortable. So I love the idea of offer till it hurts and then offer more.
Yeah, get uncomfortable and then
Get
and then go higher because everybody else is uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you said, Colleen, if they're going to plan to be there, $10,000 over 30 years is not going to make a whole heck of a lot of difference.
Right.
And I try not. I mean, as a last resort, you might explain too. Like, okay, over the last 100 years, 3% average appreciation in home price, and more recently, it's been 8 to 10%. But let's just say it's 3%. Like, remind them that's on the full price of the house, not in the money that they put down on the house. So if you put 5% down on the house, or let's say 10% on a $300,000 house, you put 10% or 10% of on a $300,000 house is $30,000.
Yeah.
So you just experienced 3% on the $300,000, not on the $30,000. That's a damn good investment, even though you're paying interest on it.
Right.
Like-
It's still good.
Like 3% on 300,000 is what? Yeah. So you just got a $9,000 return on your $30,000. Like, think about that. It's not 3% on your investment.
It's not what you're getting in the savings account at the night.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a hell of an investment, even at 3% at the 100-year average. It's a damn good investment. $9,000 on $30,000. Even pay no mind to the interest. Right? But interest is at like 3%. What's that?
Did you say 300 or 30?
So $300,000 house at 3% appreciation is $9,000 that you just got on your $30,000 down. Plus you got equity on top of that. So if you want to explain like some investment economics, like, hey, like, calm down, you know. And also if the market goes down, well then you can buy a cheaper house, right? Like, so it's really like, okay, so you lost money because the market tanked a little bit. Well,
We're already back up to
Yeah.
more than what we tanked, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we're
like
past
if you're
the
just gonna buy another house, well then you're gonna pay less for that house.
Right.
So
And you're gonna pay to live somewhere.
yeah, so it
I think
washes
that's all I have.
out. Yeah, me too.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening.